Well, joining me live from Noosaville is One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson, thanks for coming on the show.
Good morning, Andrew.
Now, can I ask first, what's your view of the government's changes on negative gearing, capital gains tax and trusts in the budget?
Well, Andrew, to tell you the truth, I don't know what changes they've made to it. I haven't really picked up anything. I've been on the road for the last 4 days, absolutely flat out talking to the people on the ground, and they're not happy about the negative gearing or the capital gains tax cuts. Now, I said about a week ago, I believe they will make changes to it because there's such a backlash to it. I haven't been able to assess what it is. I haven't seen the legislation in full. And so when they do put it forward, but what I am hearing, they intend to put an omnibus forward and they intend to put the tax cuts in it with the negative gearing plus also the capital gains tax. Now that concerns me. This is a ploy by the Labor Party that if anyone votes against that package, they're going to advertise at the next election that you voted down tax cuts for Australians. Now, if they put the three together, we cannot vote for it. I think that the negative gearing and the capital gains tax is not good for Australians moving forward, for small business, for those people wanting to get into investment properties, for later in age to look after themselves, and for 68 cents a day, a lot of people are going to lose that in bracket creep.
Well, what do you make then of Angus Taylor's policy to index the tax brackets?
Well, you need to. We've spoken about that on the floor of Parliament. By all means, index the tax brackets because they just keep moving all the time. So when you get an increase in your pay, you possibly put you up into the next tax bracket. Of course it does. Look, Andrew, what I want to do is have a look at taxation leading into the next election. I think that we need to overhaul our whole taxation system to make it a fairer system. Those people who work overtime, do their 40 hours a week or 38 hours a week, they're working overtime, they're taxed to the hilt. And I think we need to overhaul the whole taxation system. I'm not telling you now what I'm going to do, but this is something I am seriously looking at.
So you're talking about a big tax shake-up policy for the next election. Would you run that proposal and other proposals through the Parliamentary Budget Office for costing?
Of course, yes. We have that access now because we've become a parliamentary party. We didn't have that beforehand. We don't have the resources like those of the major political parties, so it has been extremely hard for us. But I'm working with other organisations, economists and different people to get this right. We've also had, in the last election, the income splitting. So if you've got one dependent child at home, you've got one of your income earns about $120,000 a year. You can split that between the two. That would have a saving of around about $9,500, $10,000 a year in that household. So I want to try and help those families and give them the opportunity to be able to stay home with their children.
So in terms of the budget, we're running these huge deficits, or the government is, should I say. Do you have a view on them, what the government should be doing about them? Do you think they should be cutting the NDIS? Do you think they should have alternative tax proposals to raise revenue?
Yes, there is only two ways of getting revenue in. That's through productivity or taxing the people. You can't tax the people anymore. When you've got about 7 million people in Australia only eating one meal a day, that is of great concern to me, and you've got the homelessness that you have. The government has created this mess themselves by the mass migration they brought into the country, and they continued with it. Apart from the people crying out and saying, please stop, we can't cope with this anymore. They've been so arrogant about their whole attitude towards this because they had to bring in migrants to prop up their gross domestic product and to run the country. Now, what they need to do, the climate change and all these transmission lines, they can't give us a figure on it. They can't tell us what's been paid out in subsidies to these companies and organisations. They're destroying people's farming, their land, where we're heading, and it won't deliver the power that we need to drive the country. And another big issue with that, we have to look at AI data. We will not be able to store our own AI data in this country because we don't have the power to drive it. So that's another real big issue. So this all renewables is a scam, a waste of money, and we need to go to more coal-fired power stations and nuclear if we are going to drive this country. Get rid of the Climate Change Department, cut the NDIS to those who desperately need it. I was listening to Jenny McAllister. There is so much scamming. When the government's brought in that you can get $195 an hour, or in regional remote areas over $300 and very remote over $500 an hour, why aren't they looking at these people that have been scamming it for over $350,000, have shut down that company, go and open up another company and doing exactly the same again?
Sure.
There is so much rorting, scamming going on, but the department has not done their job to rein in the rorts.
What do you think the government should do right now on cost of living? Because if they give people handouts, etc., if they cut bills, it's inflationary. So what would you like to see them do on cost of living right now that isn't inflationary? Or do they have no choice because it is inflationary?
It is. Look, what's happening is the public services now has increased 50,000 people under this Labor government. So we're looking at 216,000 now employed under the public service. What we pay some of these public servants is outrageous. So that's what I'd look at also. You've got to put more money into the budget. What you've got to do with it, we've been really hamstrung with the amount of regulations, rules, constraints that have been put onto businesses and companies. So the safeguard mechanisms, for a case in point.
Pauline,
so these companies have to apply to it. Once you do that, you lower the cost of producing that good or product in Australia, so that those people will pay less for it. Look at the industrial relations as well, employment of people. That's another big thing. Businesses can't pay what they're supposed to pay them. As a fellow said to me, he said, why would I pay a 15 or 16-year-old $43 an hour when I don't have the experience and knowledge from them? Everything that they've introduced in this country is putting more pressure on the cost of producing in this country. Get rid of all the rules, regulations, even right through to the farming sector, productivity, industries, manufacturing, everything like that. That has driven up the cost.
But driving up salaries is the ageing population, Pauline Hanson. And so I wonder how your migration stance sits with that, because if you don't have a big enough migration intake with the ageing population, you don't have enough workers, do you? And that creates a need for higher salaries and puts pressure on business, doesn't it?
You mean to say that bringing in mass migration means that the fact is we've got, lack of housing. So what's more important? So you don't care about people living in their cars, families in tents, in their caravans, so that's no problem to you whatsoever. Well, that is an issue for me. All right?
What
we are
about
bringing in palm workers, we're bringing visa
workers?
holder workers, we're bringing this. Of course they are. And I was the one who pushed for workers in the abattoirs. Apart from the palm workers, I was the one that went to the immigration minister, Alex Hawke at the time, and said, you've got to allow them to come into work in the abattoirs, which they did. I'm listening to these ones in rural and regional areas. They need the workers because no one will work. They can't get Australians to work. So that's, you've got a problem there as well. So it's an ongoing problem which they're not prepared to do it. You can't flood the country. And I'll tell you, I have these figures. In 22-23, we brought in 739,000 people. They said it's because we need skilled labour. Guess what of that, Andrew? Only 51,605 were skilled, and of that, only 1,800 in the construction industry. So this is a problem that we have. And you talk about bringing down price, cost of living. Why the hell are people now forced to put in bathrooms for those people who may be in wheelchair access or with disabilities? Why are we forcing people to make improvements to their houses? They're building new houses to comply with people on NDIS. The cost of bathroom is anything between $16,000 and $32,000 extra. Ceiling fans in every room, double glazing, which people don't need. You've driven up the cost of housing to the ordinary Australians out there, and this is all government policies.
All right.
Governments have done this to the people.
Let me ask, we've got a situation where we've seen a poll having One Nation in the position where it could win more than 50 seats in the parliament. Do you believe that's a realistic result for One Nation at the 2028 election, Pauline Hanson?
Andrew, I didn't do the poll, right? Nothing to do with me. This is what's come out. They said that we would get about 22, 23% in South Australia. We got that. We got 7 seats. They weren't expecting that. They thought we'd do quite well in Farah, but they never picked 40%. There's such an undercurrent that's happening in this country that people are fed up and they want change. You know, I heard McAllister say, oh, well, it's just a coalition problem. I'm telling you, it's not a coalition problem. I was sitting here just waiting to do the interview with you, and a fella walks past and he said, oh, it's me, come back. He said, you've got to get in there and make change to this country. He said, I've got to tell you, he said, I've been a Labor voter. He said, no more. He said, no more. I'm not voting for them again. I hear this constantly all the time. People, it's not just about coalition, it's about Labor, it's about the Greens, it's about everyone. They are hurting so much. They want truth, honesty, they want clear policies. And if you think I haven't got policies, go and look at my website. So that's another furphy, what they'll tell people. I don't have policies. They pick up my policies all the time, Andrew.
Are you considering personally running for a lower house seat? Would you consider the seat of Wright or Oxley or even Flynn? Are you thinking about running downstairs, Pauline?
It is in consideration, by all means. It is in the mix, but I'm not making a decision now, and I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm doing at this moment because I haven't clearly made up my mind. It will be a discussion that I will have with the team around me, with my other members of Parliament, and it will be based on political strategy as well on what I'm going to do to move forward with it. But there is a clear indication that people really want change in this country. This government, the Albanese Labor government, is the worst government I have ever seen. Even their backbenchers are rising up against these tax cuts. They don't know how to sell it to the people. That tells you there is clearly a dictatorship that goes on within the Labor Party in the caucus. So their backbenchers don't have a say. Albanese's got nothing to worry about this. I'll tell you why. He's done his 2 terms as Prime Minister of this country. He's going to leave with a pension of over $200,000 a year with his staff, his office, everything like that. He doesn't give a damn about it whatsoever. It's the people of this country. He's living in one hell of a mess, and his members of Parliament, they haven't got a voice. They can't speak up. They won't say anything, as they didn't with the Voice.
Do you want to be Prime Minister, Pauline Hanson?
Do I want to be Prime Minister? Well, I tell you what, I won't knock the job, Andrew, because I believe that I have the ability to do it. I'm not going to underestimate myself or say, no, I can't do it, because, you know, have a look at what we've got now. Really, honestly, and that's why we're in a mess. I don't know if I will ever take the position, but I'll tell you something, Andrew, it's not about Pauline Hanson, my own, you know, wanting to go and be Prime Minister. It's getting the right person in the position to drive this country so that we can have a future for our kids and grandchildren. I see the destruction that's happened here. We've lost over 1,400 industries, manufacturing, 50,000 small businesses gone insolvent. The farming sector is shutting up shop. They don't want to farm anymore. And people can't put a roof over their head and food on the table for the kids. This isn't the country that I grew up in. So whether it's Pauline Hanson as Prime Minister or we've got someone else to take on that job to drive the fact that I will look at who's the best person to do it.
Do you have confidence you would have a team or could pull together a team that could form a competent cabinet?
You bet I do. I certainly do. I'm given a great team around me, and even those members of Parliament that I have now, they're great, down to earth, the experience and knowledge they have behind them, and it's marvellous. You know, Barnaby Joyce, he's got a spring in his step. He's really happy to be part of the party. He's got a voice. He's out there, and here's a man who's former Deputy Prime Minister of the nation, the portfolios that he's had. You know, people say, oh, well, he's responsible for being part of the Paris Agreement and net zero. Well, you know what? He actually realises now that wasn't the way to go. Unlike a lot of the other members of Parliament who actually won't say or do a damn thing but go along with being told what they're supposed to do. That's not representative for the people. Admit when you're wrong and try and get it right. So we've got a great team, and as I said, I got Corey Bernardi for South Australia. What a great leader he is. A lot of good people. Don't underestimate David Farley either, who won the seat of Farah.
It was the subject of controversy a couple of months back when you told Sherry Markson on this channel that, quote, "How can you tell me there are good Muslims?" Do you stand by that statement, there are no good Muslims today?
Andrew, let's put it in the full context, because we were talking about radical Islam, and I said and followed on, then how can you tell me there are any good Muslims if jihad was called? Let's put it in full context, all right? Instead of the gotcha moments, because I'm sick and tired of it. That's what people want. And there's a lot of unrest in this country. And when I look at countries like Britain or Canada or Germany or France, they got a hell of a problem over there. So I stick with what I said.
Do you want to ban Muslim immigration to Australia?
I want to ban the burqa, right? So if you've got people coming from these countries that are radical Islamists and their ideology is not compatible with our country, yes, I do. So there's certain countries I probably would ban them coming into Australia. And I know the former government, they actually were very mindful where they brought migrants in from. They did it in an underhanded way. I'll be open and honest with people. And I do want to ban the burqa because it's incompatible with our culture and our way of life, and it should not be worn in Australia. 24 countries around the world have actually banned it, and we should be doing it here. This is a Judeo-Christian country, or, you know, the values of that. We've got different religions here by all means, but can you tell me, do you believe that Sharia law, do you believe that female circumcision, do you believe that multiple marriages that the taxpayer are paying for is any good? Do you want to see terrorism on our streets? Because this is the ideology that we've been bringing into this country. I'm not going to back away from this. I do not want Australia like Great Britain.
During the week, we had one of your New South Australian members of Parliament, Jason Virgo, give a speech to the Parliament. Let's have a bit of a listen to that. I'll play that to you, Pauline Hanson.
To my partner, Risang, we have built a life together. Risang was born in Indonesia, a Muslim, and is now a proud Australian. Our closest friendship circle was made largely of immigrants from China, India, and the Philippines. I love migrants. The overwhelming majority are simply searching for a better life.
He's one of your MPs. He's got a Muslim boyfriend and he loves migrants. What did you make of his comments?
There's a difference here, and I've had a Muslim that has stood for me as a candidate for the seat of Hornsby in the New South Wales state election. She ran a business, she dressed like any other Australian, she didn't wear the full burqa, and so there's a difference. So don't try and drag it in because you use the terminology Muslim and how I feel about it. Jason is a man who's you know, is very much in love with his partner, and so be it. Whether he's Muslim, whether he's Hindu, it doesn't matter. The fact is that let's get back to the basics. When you have imams and you have these ones who are pushing hatred and spewing hatred in our mosque and on our streets, that's a hell of a difference, Andrew. So let's deal with the real facts here.
The minimum wage decision's out during the week and the government has called for an above-inflation wage increase for minimum salary workers. Do you support that?
Andrew, again, we'll go back to what I was saying earlier about cost of living. The pressures that are putting on businesses because the rising cost of electricity due to this government, so everything comes down to cost of electricity. If you lower the cost of electricity, the cost of production and producing those goods, even running businesses, even the shopping centres, they have to cover their cost of electricity. You can't just say we're going to give you a rise because, you know, you really need to understand 50,000 small businesses have gone insolvent because they can't pay their bills, Andrew. Doing business. I've been a businesswoman most of my life. Unlike a lot of other members of Parliament who haven't had a job in the real world, wouldn't understand what it is to employ people, pay the bills at the end of the week. What's left is yours to put in your pocket. Most businesses are struggling even to make ends meet, let alone, and a lot of them can't employ staff. So I wouldn't want talk too much about employing, putting up wages, because a lot of these employers out there can't even afford to pay their staff.
Sure. So would you like to see you spoke about industrial relations earlier and a policy. Would you like to see a return more to the sort of work choices side of things to help business out?
Andrew, Andrew, we need to have an overhaul here, and I'm telling you what the big problem is. People are fed up because they don't want to put anyone on to work, and I'm hearing it from apprenticeships in the hairdress and everything like that. People won't turn up, and these young ones, he said, they don't want to work, and then they're tired by early afternoon or are on their phones or they take days off. There's no compliance with it whatsoever. Even when they want to finish work or when they want to leave you, okay, they can just say, see you later, and they're gone. Whereas you have to give them, all these 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. If not, you can't even sack anyone if they're not working. If they steal from you, then you see yourself through the courts. This has to change. It has to change. There's a give and take in employment, and people have a right to employ who they want to. We've become too dogmatic, and we're not listening to the employer out there and asking them, who do you want to employ? We're told. And myself, when I, staff years ago to get rid of a staff in my office, do you know that they had to be paid for 4 months? They were taking the mickey out of me and the taxpayer. Could I tell the department that? No. They just keep pay all the time, or they'll take you through the court system. And this is why employers just pay up their average $7,000 to $10,000 just to get rid of them. It's a scam that's going on, and a lot of people play in it. The whole thing needs a complete overhaul.
Now, I'm nearly out of time, but a couple other things I want to ask you about, and thanks so much for your time. Your new federal MP, David Farley, has said he'll fly 3 flags in his office, including the Aboriginal flag and Torres Strait Islander flag. This is something you previously opposed. So what do you make of this stance by David Farley?
Well, that's the first I've heard about it, to tell you the honest truth. I don't run David Farley's office with his staff or his decision-making. We work together as a team. So that's clearly his choice. He's the elected Member of Parliament. It's not something that I do myself. And actually my view is there won't be, if I was to be Prime Minister or leader in this country, there won't be 3 flags on the floor of Parliament. I can assure you that, and there won't be a welcome to country either. So anyway, we have a point of difference there, don't we? But that's his office. He can do whatever he wants to. But our policy is only 1 flag, and that's the Australian flag.
You've had millions of donations from Gina Rinehart, including a plane. You've posted this. Has she shifted her support from the Liberals to you, and what's that about? Is she an influence on policy for you? What does she think of your oil and gas resources proposal with a 30% possible government stake?
Look, Andrew, yes, she's very disgruntled with the Liberal Party, and she was always a big donor to the Liberal Party, and I appreciate the support that she's given me. I've been open and honest with it. I don't know why people get such a problem, have a problem with my having a plane which gets me out to rural and regional areas. It's no cost to the taxpayer. You don't pay for the fuel, you don't pay for the plane, but it gets me to areas that it's very hard for me to get there, and the people love it when I get out there and they see me. Now, I've got a lot of prominent people, former donors to the Liberal Party, that are coming on board with One Nation. So just be aware of that, what's happening. Gina Rinehart has been supportive of my policies. Why? Because she can see that this is going to drive change in this nation. The Liberal Party will lax. The Liberal Party become full of the moderates who are, this woke agenda, male-female rubbish that's been pushed on to us. And then you've got, there's no productivity, the division that's happened there. She's like many other Australians, and I take my hat off to that woman. She just gave $200 million for veterans, for housing. She does the Royal Flying Doctors. She helps the Olympians. She's a great Australian. Her voice is no different to anyone here, and I've got a lot of people waiting to talk to me, anyone else here that has an opinion, or the farmer, whoever they are, to come up and tell me what they think is wrong with this country. Her voice is no different to anyone else's.
Pauline Hanson, very much appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Quick favour, if you love Australia and want to stay ahead of what is happening in our country's politics, subscribe to Oz Politics Report and click the notifications bell icon. It helps us keep this channel going. More than 90% of viewers have not subscribed, and it would mean a lot if you joined us. Thank you. Now, back to the show. Pauline Hanson has put Australia's tax system, migration, energy policy and cultural arguments into one political pressure cooker. The lid is rattling, and Canberra insists everything is under control. But is it? In this interview, Hanson offers a simple diagnosis. Australia is paying more, receiving less, and being told to smile as the bill arrives. First comes immigration.
Hanson argues that mass migration is worsening housing shortages and stretching hospitals, schools and infrastructure. It is a message that lands with Australians watching rent rise while governments announce new targets with the confidence of a used car salesman promising the engine only makes that noise on Tuesdays. But the serious question is not whether migration affects demand. It does. The question is how much Australia can sustainably manage, where arrivals settle, and whether housing and services are built fast enough. Slogans do not pour concrete. Policy does. And that brings us to the next fight. Who pays for the mess? Hanson also takes aim at Labor's tax proposals, especially negative gearing and capital gains changes. She wants a proper tax overhaul, not an omnibus bundle that leaves families reading fine print like terms and conditions on a phone contract. She argues for indexed tax brackets and more support for families with dependent children. That pitch works because bracket creep is not an economic lecture. It is the moment pay rises slightly, groceries rise dramatically, and the Treasurer says the economy is improving. But every tax cut has a cost. The real test is helping working families without blowing another hole in the budget. Follow the money and the politics gets less shiny. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this. It genuinely helps us bring you clear Australian political coverage. Then comes energy. Hanson rejects the renewable-focused direction of government and calls for coal and nuclear power. Her argument is blunt. Expensive electricity raises costs across manufacturing, farming, construction and the weekly shop. In her telling, renewable subsidies are the political equivalent of buying a barbecue that looks brilliant in the catalogue but refuses to cook when guests arrive. Supporters say reliable power matters. Critics say climate policy cannot be binned because the transition is difficult. Both sides must answer one practical question. How does Australia deliver power that is affordable, reliable and cleaner without turning the national grid into a science experiment during a heatwave? And there's more. She wants less red tape for business and workplace laws that make hiring and firing so risky that firms feel trapped. She also calls for tighter NDIS oversight after reports of inflated provider charges. That is a legitimate question, even if the answer needs evidence and careful reform. Protecting vulnerable Australians cannot mean protecting waste. Cultural politics remain central. Hanson rejects welcome to country ceremonies and argues Parliament should put the Australian flag first. Her bigger ambition is unmistakable. She wants one nation to turn frustration into power, and she does not rule out a larger leadership role. That is where the interview becomes more than a list of complaints. It becomes a test. Can anger become disciplined policy, or will Canberra keep serving up another parliamentary sausage with no onions? Thank you for watching, everyone.